Welcome to the Looking Glass Chair podcast, episode number 2. And wow, thank you to each and every single one of you who supported the podcast with episode 1 through sharing, through liking, through messaging, through the feedback that everybody gave me. I want to thank you for every single one of you because honestly, I thought I would do episode 1 to put a feelers out to see how, if it did help any women, and it has. It has helped at least a couple of women who have messaged me, and honestly, that's what this was about. And honestly, I'm so overwhelmed. I thought I would get like 20 views. We on YouTube, I think we've hit 319 the last time I checked. So that is more than I could ever imagine so far. Because I am just a normal girl who's gone through so many things. I say girl, woman. I wish I was a girl still. I'm just a normal woman who wants to share her journeys and stories about what she's gone through to help other women. But also, I want other women to feel comfortable to come here and speak about what they've gone through, whether it be in the good, the bad, and the nitty and grey. That is what I want. So, obviously, the last time I spoke, we were going to speak about IVF. Now that has a wee bit of a change, just because scheduling issues has been a wee bit of a wee bit of a hiccup, and that's okay though. That is okay. These things happen. With being a self-employed hairdresser, I work stupid hours, so trying to get work around like other people's scheduling is a wee bit hard. But the next episode, we are speaking about IVF, but we have a lovely, amazing lady coming in to speak about what her IVF journey what she went through, and how she's ended up with 2 beautiful babies afterwards, as she had twins. So yes, I'm very excited to have her on. She's been in my chair before. She is one of my lovely clients, but she's ready to share her story, so then you might be ready to share yours. So please feel free, if you are ready to share your story, feel free to email me. My email will be in the link, and let's speak about the nitty and grey and the good and the bad. So yeah, feel free. But this episode, I wanted, 1, to speak about a good part, and 2, to speak about a bad part. And I say good and bad part. So I want to speak about my labour, about what I went through. And one thing that I've seen through having pregnant ladies in my chair is that women only speak to you about the bad stuff when you're pregnant, about the bad stories of labour, and that is something hard to hear. Like when you are pregnant with a baby and you're already a nervous mum waiting to go into the labour or birthing suite, you are a nervous wreck, and sometimes listening to a bad story is one of the worst. So this time I want to share my good story. I want to share you about Charlotte's birth and how amazing it was. And I always say, if I didn't have a Charlotte that had multiple personalities and childcare wasn't an issue, I think we would have had another one. But that is not on the cards for us. So I wanted to share my birthing journey, which was not the normalist one, should I say. My best friends were my birthing partner. My brother was there for half of it, and Paul didn't meet Charlotte until 6 hours after she was birthed because he was waiting on plaster drying. So let's just say my birthing story was not normal. So you might find it interesting, but also if you are a pregnant lady and you don't like listening to these sort of things, please feel free to stop listening and maybe listen after you've had your baby. But also, this is a good one. It's not, there's no dramas, there's nothing scary or that in this story during my labour. It was all just kind of funny. I'm not going to laugh when somebody says, oh, I've had a funny labour. I kind of think, oh, like, how could you have a funny labour? I can't. But I think the hard part for me after having Charlotte was literally, Charlotte had a cow's milk protein allergy, which I had not a clue of what that was. And that was really, really hard after labour, and really, really hard watching her struggle through having bottles and things. And that is another thing I want to speak about on this podcast episode, because I had no clue what CMPA was. So we are going to speak about that also. So let's start with the fun part. let's start with labour. Let's start now. Through my pregnancy with Charlotte, I was put on a high risk path because I had had a late miscarriage with another little girl, and that was very hard. That's something I don't really speak about. It's something maybe one day I will open up about, but I still struggle with that now. So that is something that I find hard speaking about. So I do keep that part of me to myself. But maybe one day, if somebody else, if I watch another woman be courageous enough to speak about theirs, I might just one day open up about that. But right now, I only want to speak about the good. But with Aiden also, I had the starts of preeclampsia, so that was another reason I was put on a high risk path. So those two factors, they had then says, right, they need to keep an eye on me. I also took aspirin all the way through my pregnancy, just to make sure my blood pressure stayed down. And I had no issues. I got growth scans. She grew quite well. There was nothing at all through my pregnancy. I was very ill to start off with, and I was very, very tired. And from the first few weeks to about 15, 16 weeks, the tiredness, and women who are pregnant at this moment, you will understand that tiredness. There is no other tiredness like that. It is hell. So for anybody that's going through that at the minute, I salute you, because literally that is a hard time to go through. But yeah, I was quite healthy, quite active. I worked up until 3 weeks until before I had Charlotte, and honestly, I was walking up hills up until I was like 36 weeks, and I was still doing normal things. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to keep active, because everybody that says to me, if you keep active, like, it's more easier when you're going through labour, which I did think that was normal. Well, that's what, not normal, but I thought that was good advice, so I kept with that advice. Now, it got to bang on Charlotte's due date. Now, Charlotte was due on the 19th of January, and that Sunday morning, I woke up and I didn't feel a move. Now, when you're a pregnant mum, you get to know your baby when they kick, when they flip, when they decide to shove their foot in your bladder. You do tend to understand when they're more active, whether it's nighttime, morning. And she was always a morning baby, like her father. So literally, Paul is honestly such a morning person. So that's what I think, like Charlotte, that's where Charlotte gets it from. So she was very active in the morning, and that morning I woke up, her due date, and I went, she's not active as much as she usually is. And I was obviously start to panic. So you do the normal things: glass of water, chugged it down, bath, walked around, kept active. And I phoned my mum, and my mum was like, phone triage right now, get up there. So phoned triage, they were like, yep, get up here. Went straight up. They put her on the, we run, that must have been about 1 o'clock, put her on the monitor, and they weren't happy. They weren't happy with how her heart beat was. So I was there for a good 3 hours, and they just weren't getting a great reading from her. So they decided, right, we're going to give you. Now, I had a sweep prior to that, and they'd says, look, your sweep's not done much. So what we'll do is we will give you another sweep, and what we'll do is we'll get you started off. Also, we just want to make sure that she is in no distress, and we'll just start you off. You're now at your due date, so let's get you in. So I was like, okay. I listen when somebody when a health professional or any professional in that kind, whether beautician, medical, anything like that, tells you, I will go with what they say. And I did. And they says, like, let's get you induced. I was like, okay. So they test me, go home, grab your bag, grab something to eat, and get back up to the ward. I was like, okay. So I did, and I got very emotional dropping Aiden off at my mum's. For the very last time, it would just be the two of us. And of course, I'm sitting there bubbling, thinking, oh my God, when I come back, I'm going to have a baby. There's going to be three of us. And at this time, it was three of us, because me and Paul weren't technically a couple. And when I say we weren't technically a couple, we were just seeing each other. And it was like I say, it was a bit, our story is a bit different. So that was when my brother came in. My brother was like, I'll take you up to the hospital. I was like, okay. So here's us plodding into the ward. And the first thing, when we get into the ward, she puts me in a room. And the very first thing we say to the nurses, this is my brother. Please, please, please do not give me an internal or anything in front of him. He's just my brother. And she bursts out laughing. She's like, okay. So, of course, they start hooking me up all of these monitors. And then James starts to panic. My brother's like, what's going on? What's going on? What's that for? What's that for? What's that? And she's like, it's okay. Like, she's okay. And I'm sitting there just absolutely giggled to myself because I had been through this before. And obviously my brother has never, now there's 2.5 years between my brother. My brother acts like my bigger brother, but he's honestly, he's an amazing person. So he sat there until the monitors had gone on and she had turned around and says, oh, do you realise you're contracting? And I went, nope, don't feel it, don't feel a thing. So she says, right, okay, so what we're going to do is put the suppository in, which the suppository obviously softens your cervix and starts things rolling. And what they had looked at on my OBS, I think they call that I was actually contracting, but I wasn't feeling it at all. So he then says to me, before we give you the suppository, what we'll do is if you could just go have a wee wander around the hospital and see if you could bring on labour. I was like, okay. So this is me and my brother walking from vending machine to vending machine to get snacks to then try and bring on labour. I'm making umpteen phone calls to my birthing partners who were my best friends. Yes, we did. My best friends were my birthing partners because Paul had accepted that he didn't want to be in that room when I was in labour. One, he doesn't cope very well in hospitals. Completely understand. Two, he wouldn't have been a great support. And he admits it. He fully admits that he would not have been a great support with me being into labour. And I had fully accepted it. Now, for somebody to then turn around and say to me, look, I wouldn't be great with this, I respected him more for that for me than anything, because I was like, well, I'm going to need somebody that is going to be able to support me then. So I wasn't angry in the slightest. I was actually overwhelmed with the fact that he did tell me the truth about it. So I asked my best friends to be my birthing partner because my mum was my birthing partner for my first son, and she was amazing, but she kept flinging the gasoline in my face. And no offense to my mum, but I was like, no, I just want somebody that will go with, like, instead of pushing and pushing, yes. So I asked my two best friends, and also my mum had to look after Aiden. Like, she's one of the ones that I knew Aiden would be in safe hands with. So we went back to the ward, and she says, no, you're not progressing. So what we'll do is we'll put the suppository in, and we'll see how it goes. So at this point, I was like, right, off you go, James. Nope, not getting to see the next part. On you go. And he's like, are you sure? I don't like the idea of you like being on your own. And I'm like, I'm fine. I'm totally fine. Like, I could do this. And I think that mindset of, I have raised a child for 11 years. I could do this myself. I can completely do this part myself. So off you go. So my brother, obviously, he started, I think he freaked out when I left. He left. When he left, he was a bit like, oh, I don't think I should leave it. But he did, and everything was fine. They put the suppository in, and they says, look, this can take time. It'll probably be a long road, but if you need anything, just give me a shout. Try and get some rest, and that was that. So that was it, back at 12 at night. Now, before I carry on, this was the 19th of January. This was for Judy. Now, I had laughed to the midwives umpteen times, say, she'll come tomorrow. She will come tomorrow. And the midwives had said to me umpteen times, no, no, no. Induction can take some time. It doesn't usually, sometimes it takes a long time for your body to obviously react to drugs and stuff like that. So I wouldn't count your chickens. Now, on the 19th of January, she was due. The 20th of January was my 30th birthday. And I had joked and said, she's waiting. She's just waiting on this day so she could steal my birthday. And every midwife that I spoke to just said, no, no, no. Like, it could take a couple of days. I'm like, okay. So then we get to 3 o'clock in the morning. I wake up and I feel something obviously uncomfortable. So I'm like, okay, let's get on that ball. So that's when the contractions started, and that's now they were a good, I would say, 10 minutes apart. But I was like, okay, we'll keep walking, we'll keep bouncing, and then I did have to buzz the midwife and say, look, I'm getting a wee bit uncomfy, can get a wee bit of pain, like paracetamol. So they brought through some Codema, and she says, right, okay, like we'll give it a wee bit of time, and then we'll see how we are. I was like, okay. So within that hour, boom, I felt a big, let's just say, burst. That's the only way to describe a burst. And I was like, what is that? Then realised it was my waters. So again, midwife buzzed, and they were like, yes, that is what your waters. So what we'll do is we'll check you and see how you progressed. So at that point, I was 4 centimetres dilated, and I texted the midwife, told you, she's coming today, and he's like, oh no, like that's sometimes it takes a while. Don't get your hopes up. And I was like, nope, she's coming today. So then I kept bouncing, I kept walking, and then it got to 6 o'clock, and they checked me again, and they were like, right, I think it's time you phone your birthing partners because this baby is coming and coming fast. So they then said to me, look, we're just waiting till switch over at 8 to then get you down to labour. So that was at that point, I was like, right, okay. So I phoned my birthing partners, and they creeped in because obviously this was like back at 6 in the morning. And at that point, you were only allowed one person on the ward. But they kept saying, because it's your birthday, because it's your 30th birthday, we will let your other birthing partner into now. And then when you go to labour suite, everyone will be fine. Fine. So then my friends, Cheryl and Lisa, they were amazing. They sat and while I rocked, they just spoke and just did normal things and made me laugh. And of course, I was holding, squeezing Cheryl's hand every time I had a contraction, and I probably about broke it. Then it got to the back of 7, I think it was. Now, some things are clear, some things are fuzzy, but I remember that point, and I says to Shiz, I feel like I need to push. And that was that. She was right into action. She was like, she needs to push. She needs to go down there. And with my pal Cheryl, you don't mess with her. You just don't. It's just one of those things where everybody's like, right, let's get you down. So they did. And they got me into the labour suite. Now at that point, I was really uncomfy sitting down. I did say to them, I really need to, I feel the pressure in my bum. So I was like, right, okay. So got in to the labour suite. Now I wasn't allowed to be in the midwifery unit. The midwifery unit I'd always planned to go into, which my plans had obviously gone out the window because they had to induce me. So when you get induced, you do then have to be under more care because it's a lot of hormones that they've put into your body. So that can affect like things like blood pressure, the baby's heart rate. So they obviously have to keep a closer eye on you. So that is why they put me into the labour suite, which at that point I accepted it. They know, I always find that like, I always think in my head like they know best, so I will go with what they say, which I did. And when we got into the labour suite, I had 2 midwives, and they were lovely. They were absolutely fantastic. And when we were in that room, so it was the 5 of us. We just had an absolute riot, and it's usually because me and Cheryl were arguing about one music test. She didn't like my playlist, and because at this point I was off my face on gas and air, I was giving her it back. So the midwives were absolutely howling at themselves at us, and we had such. They'd asked them if they wanted a cup of tea, and then the next minute they were gamming up. And honestly, I'd say to them, "What's happening?" And they were like, "Oh, she'll be here in the next 20 minutes." And I just looked at them and went. They kept saying to me it was going to take days. And she was like, "Oh no, this baby's ready." And I was like, "That's because it's my birthday. She's trying to steal my birthday." And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that she was coming on my 30th birthday and we were going to be birthday twins. So it then, I think it was 9:10, and I'd been pushing. I don't think I was pushing for long. And don't get me wrong, I remember they call it the Ring of Fire. I do remember that part. Now, when I say it wasn't that bad, I would do it again. I would do it if we could have another baby. I would happily go into labour again. But as soon as her head was out, that was it. The pain had just totally subsided, and it was honestly that feeling of having that her come into the world and everything just was plain sailing. It was just amazing. But the one thing that made it even more special now, when one of the midwives had been checking me and she was going to be delivering Charlotte, she says to me, "Oh, do we have a name for this little girl?" And I says, "Yeah, we do. We think her name will be Charlotte." And she looked at me funny, and I went, "What's wrong?" And she was like, "My name's Charlotte. Like, wait, it's the first time I've ever helped birth a Charlotte." And honestly, the honestly, the apps, I was like, this is meant to be. This day was meant to be. So she was born at 9:10. She was healthy. 6 pound 9, no complications. I had no stitches. I had gas in the air. My placenta was delivered totally fine. And yeah, I then phoned Dad, who I then says, "She's here." And the first thing he says, "Does she look like a Charlotte?" And he's like, "Yeah, she is a Charlotte." And he was like, "I will be up as soon as I can. I'm just finishing this job," because he had been plastering. "And I'll be right up." And he was like, "Okay, not a problem." So I felt great. I honestly felt great. I would try to give her a bottle. She wasn't feeding that great. But at this point, we didn't know. At this point, we kind of just thought, "Oh, she's just maybe a wee bit fussy." I had chosen SMA to use for formula. I thought I would be raising her as a single mum. Did I know the things I know now? Different. But I actually regret not breastfeeding her or trying to not breastfeed her. I kind of thought, I always knew that breastfeeding is very hard to begin with, and I salute any woman who does do breastfeeding. I think it's an amazing thing. But I do wish I'd tried, because it might have had a wee bit of a different story to this. But when we tried to feed her formula, she wasn't taking it very well. So I'd says to Auntie Cheryl, "Right, Auntie Cheryl, if you give her try to feed her the rest of this bottle, I'll get in the shower, we'll have our tea and toast, and we'll get out of here." That is not exactly how it went. So I came out the shower, and honestly, there is something like trying to pee for the very first time is nerve wracking, completely nerve wracking. But it was fine. It's not as near as bad as what you think it is, lady. It's not. So I came through, and the midwife had Charlotte, and they weren't too happy with how she was not taking a bottle. They had then checked her height, weight, things like that, and they checked for a tongue tie, but they didn't see anything. And they says, "Look, we're not too happy. She needs to be feeding more, so we can't let you go yet. So we'll need to send you up to the ward." That was fine. I understand that. So here's me wheeling my little girl, and just walked to the ward, no wheelchair, nothing. I was wheeling her up, and there is a picture of me wheeling her in a wee bassinet, whatever it is, like cradle thing that you get in the hospital. And got up to the ward, got settled, and the girls were there for a wee while, and they were like, "Look, they had been there, like they had not slept much the night before because they were worried that they were going to miss something." So I was like, "Get home, go see to your kids and get home." So they did. And then my brother and my mum and stuff says that they'd come up during the visiting times. They were getting sent pictures. Everything was fine. And of course, at this point, we were trying to feed Charlotte also. So we did try umpteen times to try and feed her, and it wasn't going to plan. So then they checked all the usual things, tongue tie, and they says, "Do you want to stick with SMA?" And I was like, "Yeah, I would really like to try and stick with that." But that just didn't seem to go down very well. So then obviously everybody came to visit, and Dad appeared I think it was the back of 3. And to be honest, he says that he was waiting on plaster drying, but I think it was just the nerves. I think it was just the nerves. And he instantly fell in love with Charlotte. Absolutely instantly fell in love with it. And from the day she was born, he has been the most amazing dad. The most amazing dad that I could actually ever wish for. So even though he was not there through her birth, he has still been a hands-on, loving, amazing dad. And I will never, ever, ever throw that he was, and I still say this, I will never throw in his face that he was in. I've never thrown it in his face that he wasn't there for her birth, never, because he has made up for that tenfold, and I fully accept that, like, that what happened that day was meant to be. So she still wasn't feeling great. Dad tried to feed her. Everybody tried to feed her, kind of. She just wasn't settling. She would squirm. She scrunched, and everybody was like, "Okay, it's just not." But they said she needed to take a certain amount to get home, and at that point, and this was mum guilt for me. At this point, I was like, I just want home. I just want home. So let's just get her fed. So the next day, they had said, okay, she's managed to feed. Like, we're not 100% happy, but you could take her home. I was like, okay, fine. So we had got home the next day, and I expected. So when I had Aiden, he would have when he had a bottle, he would be milk drunk, he'd settle, and that would be that. He would sleep, open his eyes, feed, change, the usual with newborns. That's what I expected it to be, and I got Aiden in a great routine, and that's what I thought I was going to do with Charlotte, and it was completely different. Charlotte didn't sleep very well. She squirmed after every bottle. She cried as soon as we put her on her back. She just was not doing great at all, and she never decreased in weight. She always stayed quite just above average. So they didn't cause for concern from that. But the midwife did come out a couple of days later and did say she does sound a wee bit colicky. So that's when we got Infocall, and that's when we thought, right, okay, that's okay. Like, we'll try this. Infocall didn't do much better, and let's just say it was not a great experience those first few months. Now, everybody says you're in a newborn bubble, and you are in a newborn bubble. But for me, that was some of the toughest days that I'd ever had being a mum, because I had to listen to my child scream. I don't know how many times a night I was up with her. I really, really struggled with her because I didn't know what was wrong. And then everybody kept saying, "No, she's just, you don't get two babies the same. You don't get two babies the same," and I totally understood that. But this wasn't normal. The way she fed, the way she winded, she really struggled winding her as well. She just never liked a bottle, and I kept saying to myself, I don't understand. We thought it was colic. We tried everything with the whole colic thing, until one day one of my best friends, came up and says, "Look, I'll take her, like, give me, like, I'll feed her, and, like, you just sit and relax." And then she changed it and says, "Vic, do you know that's mucus in her poo?" And I went, "What?" And she was like, "That's, so to see this bit here, this is mucus in her stool." And I went, "What's that?" And now I was oblivious to any milk intolerance things, or like lactose, and like Aiden was never allergic to anything, so I didn't understand things. I didn't understand anything like that. So then she took me through that when they've got mucus, it could be like a cow's milk protein allergy, and I was like, "What's that?" And that she says it's actually like, it's when you're allergic to certain types of milk, but it's not lactose intolerant. Now, that's the thing. Lactose intolerance and cow's milk protein are two different things. And when you're cow's milk protein, it's all to do with the immune system and how your your body deals with the whey protein, and I can't remember what they're called, carobilin. I'm not a healthcare professional, guys. I'm just saying what I've experienced and what I've learnt through the years. Now, I will make this known. I am not a healthcare professional. I'm a hairdresser by trade. So this is what I just learnt through cow's milk protein allergies. So it is completely different to being lactose intolerant. So her daughter had been cow's milk protein allergy, and I was like, right, okay, so what do I do? So then she says, phone your doctor. And but at this point, right, I was researching. So I had then said, that sounds like she's got reflux. Now, I never heard of reflux before either. So then I'd researched into reflux. So then next day, on the phone to my doctors, and I was like, right, I think this is what she might have. She's never been a great baby. She's always been gurney. She does have a wee bit of eczema, all these things. And he turned around and says, well, let's deal with the reflux first. And if that doesn't get better, then we'll try this. So to begin with, she got put on Gaviscon, baby Gaviscon, which was horrendous. Like absolutely horrendous. It just did not, it was not great for Charlotte. It constipated her. Yes, it made her bottles a wee bit thicker, but it was not great. They then tried, it was milk thickener. We tried different teats for our bottle. We tried, honestly, the things that we tried for Charlotte, so many different things, it just did not work. And I went from, I wanted to use Mama Tommy Tippy to Mamas and Papas. No, Mamas, was it Mamas and Papas? It was the wee blue, pink ones. I can't remember what they were. Oh, that's going to annoy me. But we used all different bottles, and we eventually got to the point I'd phone the doctor again and says, look, the Gaviscon's not working. We've tried the thickener. I think it was called Carabol. And that wasn't working. So that's when they says, right, we're going to try omeprazole. So we then had to go on omeprazole tablets for that, which did work for a wee while, but it was not helping the main cause of it. So obviously, for her stomach wasn't liking the cow's milk protein. This is what was causing the reflux. So we needed to treat the allergy to then help the reflux. So that's when he says, no, this I need to just try a formula free one. But they says that they don't give a cow's milk protein formula free one to begin with. They give it one that's broken down in it first. So we started on Similac Alamelam, and I swear to God, the smell of this formula, it was disgusting. I was like, she's going to hate this. Why would any child like this? Excuse me. So she took it for a wee bit. She was gradually getting better, but then she depleted again. And I was like, she was getting better, but she was getting worse again. And he was like, that's because it's still got protein in it. So we need to then totally take the protein out. So that is when she got put on to Neocat. And oh my God, when I say the difference in this child, I mean, wow, complete and utter difference. She slept one night, a whole night, and I was like, oh my God, I woke up freaking out thinking, oh my God, what has just happened? Her stools were so much better. The squirming started to settle down. She was a lot more happier. She was just a complete different baby when she got moved on to this. And it took us something like 4 months before we actually got to that point. And when I say they were one of the foremost hardest months, don't get us wrong, I still enjoyed being a mum. But when your baby is screaming, crying in pain, or when you're not getting a full night's sleep, that is so horribly draining, and you don't get to enjoy being a mum. And after having such an amazing labour and then going on to something like this was hard for me. This was really hard for me because I was like, what am I supposed to do? So we then got to the point when we realised that's what it was. And at that point also, what I'd say to the healthcare worker, she's never fully liked her bottle because she sees it as pain. She then saw bottles as being as pain, and I actually started weaning. Now, don't come at me because so many people don't start weaning them until 6 months. I actually started weaning at 4 months because I was like, no, she hates milk. She was hating it, and she just was never a baby that liked milk because she saw it as pain. And because she struggled for so long with them, that's when we thought, no, let's just try and wean her. And I actually weaned her from using Weaning 15 and is it The Good Kitchen? I can't remember what book it was. They were amazing books. So we started her with broccoli and things like that, and she absolutely loved her food, loved them. And after that, she was a completely different baby, coming away from milk completely. But we always knew that we would have to come away from cow's milk protein allergy, and that is the hard part. This is the part where I want to emphasize. See, when you have a baby that has, or a toddler or a kid that has cow's milk protein allergy, see how hard it is to find food that doesn't have cow's milk protein in it. It's so hard. So I take my hat off to any mum that has a child that has CMPA, because you have to adapt everything. But brands now are bringing out things that are cow's milk protein free, which is great. I am seeing it more now. It wasn't so much when Charlotte was born. There was only a handful of things on the market, but now they're like Tesco's and Asda's and things like that. They do have such more brands for that, which is great. But there needs to be more. There definitely needs to be more for people that has cow's milk protein allergies. But with a CMPA, sometimes you find that your baby is also allergic to other things. So we found out that Charlotte was also allergic to soya, so she had to come off soya completely, which made a massive difference also. But then we reintroduced that later on. And we also found out she was allergic to peanuts. And the reason we found that she was allergic to peanuts is because I did the milk ladder at, I think it was 1, and we got into step 3 or 4, and I put peanut butter on her pancake, and next minute she broke up in hives and started coming out in a rash, and she just coughing. Needless to say, that was the most scariest thing ever, and I bolted to the chemist getting an antihistamine, and they says, yeah, no more peanuts. And she is now still allergic to peanuts at the age of 6, but she is fully back on cow's milk, and don't get us wrong, she's not that much of a fan of it because she's never really had it through her years. But at the age of 3, I think we were able to do the milk ladder completely, and she's been totally fine since. So there is sometimes babies do grow out of milk intolerances, because lactose and intolerance is completely different things. It is about your the CMPA is about your immune system and how it's not handling the whey protein that much. But and the other thing that I can't pronounce, but it doesn't mean that they might be that the rest of their life. It also means that they can't grow out of it. So this is why I wanted to speak about this on this episode of the podcast, because 1, we started off with a good story, and 2, the second is hopefully that if you are a new mum, this sounds like your baby, please go to your GP, speak to a healthcare professional, and if you think this sounds like your baby, this might help you. This might help you find out that she does have they should I say she, because obviously Charlotte's we, it might be that they do have a wee cow's milk protein allergy. It might be that they're a wee bit intolerant to something else. It might be that they have reflux. I keep saying she because that's what we had with Charlotte. But they might have something like that. If you hear this might help you. And this is what this podcast is all about. It doesn't mean I want to help, women's health, mental health, but also mothers, because I am a mother and I speak from experience. So if my experience helps you in some way, this is why I'm sharing my stories on this podcast. And also that maybe if you are a mum that's gone through something similar or something different, I would love to have you on and speak about your journey. So we are coming to the end of episode 2, and I hope I haven't blathered on too much. And I hope that you've got some information from this podcast if you are a new mum, or if you are worried about your labour. Please try and enjoy your experience, because I absolutely loved mine, and I hope my story, opening up about my story, will help you enjoy your experiences and also help with whatever you have going on with the baby, whether it's obviously the symptoms sound similar. And again, I'm not a healthcare professional. I only just speak from what I've experienced. So thank you for listening, guys. I hope episode 2 has helped in some way, and I'm looking forward to episode 3, where we will be speaking about IVF, and it links everything will link, hopefully, because obviously this lady had to have IVF to have her beautiful kids. So yeah, thank you so much, guys, and please feel free to like, share, follow, and a massive thank you to RealLink, who sent me products last week. I want to say a massive thank you to them and a wee mention to them. If you would like a wee mention on the podcast, now I am all for small businesses, So you don't need to send me a product, guys. Just tell me something about your business and tell me. You never know. I may have already been to your business, but I would love to share local businesses and things like that. So please feel free to give me a wee email or a wee message. And again, thank you so much for listening to episode 2, and I look forward to hope you like episode 3 as much as this one.